Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Foundation Fundamentals series. I'm Danielle Yates, Managing Director for Marketing and Communications here at the Greater Washington Community Foundation. We're so glad you're joining us this morning. I do want to start by sharing that we are recording this session, and we do plan to share out only the presentation portion of the session. We will not share your information or questions. During this session, you'll learn more about the basics of estate planning and how to incorporate charitable giving and legacy planning strategies. You'll hear from Ann Quinn, an estate planning attorney with Momentum Law Group, and Tiffany Purvis, the Community Foundation's General Counsel and Senior Philanthropic Advisor, who also runs our Legacy Society. We'll also leave time for your questions at the end of the presentation, but you are welcome to enter your questions as we go into the chat box, and we'll answer them when we get to the Q&A portion. As we're getting started, we would love for you to participate in a very quick, short poll. My colleague Joya will pull up in just a moment. We just want to get a sense of where you are in your estate planning journey. So please select the option from the menu that best describes your current position or what you're hoping to sort of explore today. We'll give everyone just a minute to go through that. And as you're filling that out, I'll go ahead and get moving along. First, I want to get started by grounding us all in why we're here. As a Community Foundation fund holder, you are part of a community of givers. The Community Foundation manages over 700 different charitable giving funds on behalf of our generous individuals, just like you. We also steward more than $500 million in total assets. And I think we can go ahead and probably close our poll. Oh, I guess we're getting a few more still. Since 1973, we have collectively invested nearly $2 billion in critical services, from educational programs to health clinics, arts organizations, housing nonprofit, food banks, and so many other critical services. In just the last fiscal year alone, our community of givers distributed over $90 million in grants, with more than 3/4 of grants staying right here in our region, supporting communities throughout DC, Montgomery County, Prince George's County, and Northern Virginia. So as you can see, we're deeply local, but we also support your giving wherever your passions may take you. Okay, great. We can go ahead and close our poll out. So as a fund holder, you have access to a wide range of services, including a dedicated team member who can help you think through your grant-making strategy. They can also help you identify great nonprofit partners that fit your interests. And on the fund management side, we handle all the administrative heavy lifting. You'll get quarterly reports showing your fund's activity and how your investments are performing. We also handle all compliance, such as bookkeeping, tax reporting, and audits. And we vet every single grant recommendation for you to make sure the organization is legitimate and qualified to receive your grant. You also have access to many opportunities like this to learn, connect, and deepen your philanthropic practice. Throughout the year, we host donor education sessions, looking at best practices and trends around the region. We hold community celebrations in each jurisdiction, honoring local leaders and bringing together our donors just for some fun. And we organize site visits so you can see nonprofit partners in action and meet the people doing the work on the ground. The goal is to keep you connected to us, to each other, and to the issues and organizations making a difference. One of the most meaningful conversations we have with our fund holders is about legacy, how you want to be remembered and what impact you want to have beyond your lifetime. Our presentation today will help you start to think through those big questions. You can also request our services for legacy planning consultation, succession planning guidance, and estate and gift planning. Many of our fund holders also want to pass their philanthropic values onto their children, grandchildren, or other loved ones. We're planning to do a full session on family philanthropy in October. So if this is on your mind today, please join us for that deeper conversation. And now it is my pleasure to welcome Ann Quinn to the conversation. As I mentioned earlier, she is an attorney with Momentum Law Group and focuses her practice on estate planning, business succession planning, and general corporate matters. Welcome, Ann.
Unmute. I'll start that over. Hi, everybody. I'm Ann Quinn. Welcome to Estate Planning 101. It looks like a majority of our participants do not have an estate plan, so I hope this is helpful for you. Even if you do, even if you started something, the presentation should have a little something for everybody. Um, so here we go. The presentation is meant to be a broad overview of the basic documents and basic process. And so I've broken this presentation up into 6 sections. What is estate planning? What are the basic documents? What what should you do before you meet your attorney? How to get organized for that? What information your attorney is going to want? When you should update your estate planning, and finally the Q&A. And I think we have decided as a group to hold all the questions and answers to the end of the session after Tiffany does her presentation, because we may answer your questions during the presentations, and also I think it's just a little more time efficient. So let's get started. What is estate planning? Well, it's more than just a last will. Okay, estate planning is a process that you undertake during your life to address who will manage your personal care during your life and your assets during your life, and then how and who will distribute and manage your assets at your death and where those assets will go, to whom or to what organizations. And it might even include something about your funeral arrangements. So we like to think of it in 3 pillars: your loved ones, your wishes, and your legacy. Your legacy being, are there charities that you want to benefit? Okay, so I'm sorry I haven't been giving Danielle the cues. Next slide, we are on slide 5. So what is an estate? Some people don't think they have an estate. They say, I just have a little bank account, or I just have my 401k. But your estate is all your stuff. And if you pass away, if you've been through this for a parent or, a friend, you realize there's just a lot more there than you initially thought. Besides your cash, investment accounts, retirement accounts, real estate, your personal property, your jewelry, art, pots and pans, clothes, your digital assets, cryptocurrency, photographs, your email. Do you want your personal representative to be able to read your email when you pass? That's something to think about. Your Venmo, PayPal, Apple Cash accounts, your social media accounts. What do you want to happen to all those pictures you put on Instagram? How about outstanding debts and money that's owed to you? Is there a tax refund floating out there? Is there a wage or commissions or salary that's owed to you? Is there an outstanding balance on loans maybe you made to somebody? Next slide. So another concept to think about when we think about the estate plan is the people. So of course there's you, but then there are your beneficiaries, and that's family, friends, charity. And then there's what I'll broadly call your managers. So these are people that are involved during your life and at death. So your personal representative, which is the Maryland, DC, Virginia term for executor, and maybe a trustee. These are all the players. They all play a role in this process. Next slide. And a third important concept to understand when we talk about estate planning is probate. And probate is a legal process to transfer a deceased person's assets to their heirs. And it requires filing paperwork with a legal body. And usually this is in Maryland, it's the Register of Wills. It might be a court in another state. And it eventually, even in Maryland, the Register of Wills is underneath a court. And the process can be very quick and painless, could take 6 months and be very quick and painless, or it could take several years and be very time consuming and costly because of all the administrative work. It really depends on the nature of your assets and where you live. Next slide. Uh, so now we've got the basic terms down. What does estate planning include? Well, you've probably already gleaned a little bit about this from what I've been saying, but it's distribution at death. So who receives your assets, when and how, percentages, equally, specific gifts, tax planning and asset protection planning. So there is a way, depending on, the nature of your assets and your wealth, of organizing your assets and passing them at death that offers, that can reduce the amount of tax that might be paid at your death, and that can protect the assets going forward from creditors. And this can be from your creditors if it's something really sophisticated, if it's really sophisticated estate planning. It could be your spouse's creditors. That's a little more basic. It could be your kids' creditors. So there's ways of doing your plan that can protect your kids maybe from themselves if you think you have somebody in there who likes to spend money quickly, or just kids who are young, right? $1 million to a 20-year-old is a windfall, right? But $1 million to a single parent who has to put their, child through school and pay the rent is, it's a nice start, but it's, you still have to work, right? Especially in the area we live in. Um, Estate planning includes planning for your incapacity during your life. So, maybe you're having a medical procedure and you're not going to be able to deal with your affairs for a while. Maybe it's something more tragic than that. Or maybe it's just old age, but you want to have a plan to have somebody ready and able to step in when you can't, to make financial decisions for you, or to make healthcare decisions for you, or to make living, where you're going to live, who you're going to live with. And then finally, charitable giving is part of estate planning. And that's because, well, you're probably making gifts during your life already, especially if you're on this on this webinar. But you can make gifts at death, which we see a lot of. And there are ways of making gifts that can be more tax efficient for you. So it's good to talk through your charitable intent and your charitable wishes with your estate planning attorney, because that really is part of your estate plan. Next slide, please. So what happens if you don't have an estate plan? Well, state intestacy law decides who inherits, not you. A court gets to select guardians for your minor children. And maybe it's the person you select, but maybe you have, your mother-in-law and your sister in there arguing over who's the best fit for your child. And you might have a definite opinion about that. Your family, so, if you don't, your family fights over guardianship are not good for especially for a minor child. Your assets pass through probate, which means they're disclosed to the court and they're filed in a public filing. An inventory is filed that lists all your assets, and an accounting is filed later on showing how those assets and to whom they were distributed. And some people don't like the idea of that. It's public, it can be slow, and it might be expensive. And intestacy planning doesn't provide any tax or asset protection planning. With a plan, you get to decide who gets your assets and what terms. You can name the preferred guardian for your child. You can choose the people that handle finances during your life and at death. Probate is, even if you just have a will, the time for probate is reduced, it's simplified. And if you have a revocable trust, you can fully avoid probate in a lot of cases. Not always, but usually. Last but not least, you can do some tax planning and save some taxes often, and you can do some charitable giving. Your state intestacy laws are not going to provide for your charities, and you can build in some asset protection planning. And just, as an aside, I think a lot of people are surprised. The intestacy laws are state laws and they vary from state to state. So in Maryland, um, it might be that if you have no minor children, your spouse gets everything and you're fine with that. But in DC, it might be that if you're married and you have no children, your parents and your spouse share. And I bet your spouse is probably not real thrilled with that. So the state laws do vary, the intestacy laws. And so we really recommend, do some estate planning. That way your assets go to the people you want. So next slide, please. We are on slide 10. What are the basic documents? Next slide. So there's 4 core documents, but 3 of these are, I think, the most important and the most common documents. And that's your will, your power of appointment, your power of attorney, sorry, your financial power of attorney, and your advanced medical directive. The fourth core document is your revocable or living trust, and not everybody needs that, but we'll circle back to that in a minute. But the core documents: will, power of attorney, advanced medical directive. Next slide. Okay, your will. A will is the most common way for you to direct the distribution of your property at your death. You name your personal representative. Your personal representative is also called an executor. This is the person who's in charge of marshaling all your assets. So coming up with this inventory of assets and distributing the assets to the people, paying all your debts and distributing the assets to your beneficiaries. In your will, you can name a guardian for your minor children, and you can establish trusts inside wills. So there's a lot of confusion about trusts, and we're not going to break that whole. We're not going to get too deep into the trust concept today, but you can establish trust and do tax planning in a will. So we have a lot of times clients come and say, "Oh, I need to have a revocable trust for tax planning." That's not exactly right. You might need trust for tax planning, but they might be fine in a will. A will might work perfectly fine for that. So everybody should really have a will, and this is even if you own everything jointly with your spouse or your kids, or you have beneficiary designations, or you're happy with your state's intestacy laws. You don't care. The law says whatever it says, and you're happy with those. You don't, you might be in the camp, I'm dead, I don't care. Well, the issue is you can't, like, let's talk about jointly owned property or beneficiary designations. You can't predict when someone's going to die. So, if you and your spouse are in a car accident, it might not be clear who died first or second, and that can be complicated without a will. Getting the distribution, is getting the distribution right. It might be that the assets aren't going the way you thought they were going. Maybe you thought, well, my spouse is much younger, so I know everything's just going to go to him or her. Well, we don't know that. And the same thing with your designated beneficiary. Younger people, unfortunately, sometimes die before older people. And then you might think what all the property you own, and you probably do, but we see this pretty regularly, where, especially in a situation where there's an aunt or uncle out there who doesn't have kids. And so maybe the uncle, or maybe there's a brother, and the brother is in his 90s. He didn't have any kids and he didn't have a will. And so when he passed, some of his property passed to his sister. Well, his sister was also in her 80s, and she died before anything really got going in the brother's estate got administered. And now she has these assets that she didn't know about, and there's no beneficiary designation on them. and there's no joint ownership on them. And so an estate has to be open to pass this property, and maybe it's not going, where she wanted it. So it's a good idea to have a will as a backup plan. Next document, next slide, sorry, revocable living, and that is the next document, revocable living trust. So a revocable or revocable trust or living trust, all the same thing, is a trust you create during your life to manage your assets during your life and direct how they are distributed or held at your death. Assets that are transferred to the trust do not go through probate. But not everyone needs a revocable living trust. That depends on the nature of your assets and where you live. But the irrevocable living trust, the assets avoid probate. You stay in control of the assets during your life. And then if you become incapacitated, a successor trustee can seamlessly step in and take over the management of your assets for your benefit. And so, a big plus about a revocable living trust is that it's private, and it can be a lot faster to administer the post-mortem or the post-death distribution of your assets than probate. Not always, but usually. Next slide. Okay. The third really basic estate planning document is the financial power of attorney. And that is a document that enables you to name someone as your agent so that that person can access your financial accounts during your life. So your agent can pay your bills, transfer money between accounts, and even in certain circumstances, change beneficiary designations on your assets. And that's a hot topic now because of a Wall Street Journal article that just showed up over the weekend. But it's but it's possible. Uh, you it can help. A financial power of attorney can help avoid a costly guardianship proceeding if you become incapacitated, because you've already named somebody to have access to your assets. If you become incapacitated and can't manage your affairs and there's no financial power of attorney, then we end up with a guardianship proceeding in a court to decide, who should be your guardian and who should have access to your assets. Importantly, and we see this, a lot of people have a misunderstanding of this, the power under your financial power of attorney, the powers your agent have, this ends at death. When you die, the financial power of attorney is no good. So your agent cannot use it to avoid probate or to distribute your assets. Next slide. Advanced medical directive. An advanced medical directive is a document where you name an agent to make medical decisions, and these can be end of life decisions. So, and you can also state your wishes about heroic measures and life support, artificial food and hydration, comfort care. You can, in your advanced medical directive, you will give HIPAA authorization to your agent so that your agent can see all your medical records and speak to your providers. And it really eases the burden on your family. And, a lot of people think of it only in terms of life, end of life decisions, but it could be simply you can't, maybe you've been in an accident and you can't make decisions about further testing. So it can be, it's not only about end of life. It's about really anytime you can't convey your needs to your doctors, your agent can. Next slide. So let's say you've decided you're ready to go. You need to do an estate plan. You think you know what documents you want, but you'll talk about that with your attorney and decide in the end. What do you need? What do you need to do before you meet your attorney? What can you do to make the process more efficient, faster, right? Everybody likes to be efficient, especially if you're talking to someone who's billing hourly. So next slide. Here's some things to think about before you meet your attorney. Who? Who do you want to inherit your property and what shares? And what's the timing? If it's children, you're not going to want them to inherit outright. So is it 25 the right age, or is it 40? What about guardians? Do you have minor children? Who should be the guardians? This is a tough decision, so it's good to think about this. We say though, don't get, I mean, the odds are low that your kids are going to ever need a guardian other than you. Um, some guardian is better than no guardian, and some plan is better than no plan. So it's a hard discussion to have with the other parent, but it's important, but don't let it totally get you derailed in the process. Um, who are your trusted helpers, your managers, I called them. Who's going to be your personal representative? Who's going to be your trustee? Who is going to be the agent under your powers of um, attorney and advanced medical directive? And what are your healthcare wishes about life support and comfort care? And finally, your charities. How do you want to benefit your charities? Is it, we have clients that come to us who want to make a charitable gift, but they want the gift to be used in a very narrow manner. And that's something to think about and talk to your attorney about. It's usually possible, but not always. Um, Next slide. Information to share with your attorney. So when you sit down with your attorney's going to want a whole lot of information from you. And usually your attorney will give you a questionnaire beforehand. Sometimes the attorney does the interview and completes the questionnaire with you. It depends. But basically, your attorney needs to know all the full legal names, dates of birth, and addresses for your spouse, children, other key beneficiaries. Information about prior marriages, divorces, prenuptial agreements, postnuptial agreements. Uh, if you have beneficiaries with special needs, addiction issues, creditor concerns, tell your attorney, because there's different ways of planning for that. Who do you want to serve as your executor or personal representative, trustee, or agent? And it's not always the same people, right? I mean, the person who makes your healthcare decisions might be completely different than a person that makes financial decisions. There's different strengths and weaknesses that you need for those two roles. Who are the charities or organizations you wish to benefit? And then what about your assets? Your attorney really needs to know about all your assets. So list of your real estate, your rental properties, your vacation homes, your bank, your brokerage accounts, your retirement accounts, 401ks, life insurance. I know that life insurance, a lot of people think it is worthless, to them on their net worth statement. But once you die, there's a death benefit, and we've got to make sure that's going to the right people in the right way. Business interest, do you own a business? Do you have outstanding debt or significant liabilities? And have you done estate planning before? And do you have out-of-state property? Next slide. So let's say you've gotten all this together, you've met with your attorney, you've executed your documents, you have an estate plan in place. Are you done? Not really. Your estate planning needs a checkup every now and again, and it might need to be tweaked or amended. And so you probably want to update your estate plan if you get married or divorced. For sure you do then. If you have a child or adopt a child, or maybe you have grandchildren, new grandchildren arrive. If somebody in your group of people dies, right? So a death of a spouse, a beneficiary, somebody you named as a fiduciary. Sometimes if you're buying or selling real estate, you'll want to look at your estate plan. This is particularly true if you have a revocable living trust in place, or if you're buying property out of the state. So you're here in the DC metro area and you decide you're going to go buy that beach house in Bethany. Well, now you have real estate in Delaware. It's time to call your estate planning attorney and see about how that should be owned. And if you have significant changes in your wealth or your business, it's time to update your estate plan. There may be tax planning that's beneficial to you. And so I think our key takeaways from this are that estate planning is for life, not just death. That, at the very least, you want a will, a power of attorney, and an advance medical directive. And often you want a living trust. Not always, but often. Preparation is the most powerful tool. It makes things faster and cheaper, whether your estate is going through probate or not. And review and update regularly. If you haven't looked at your estate plan in years, do a quick check. The laws change, pretty regularly, both state laws and federal tax laws. So that's it for me. We are going to wait for questions until the end of the presentation. I'm going to kick it over to Tiffany now.
Thank you so much, Anne, for taking us through the estate planning fundamentals. It was prudent to start there because thinking through legacy planning and how to incorporate philanthropy in it doesn't happen without a plan. We often think about estate planning as something that we just do for our families, and it absolutely is. But what many of us don't realize is that estate planning is also a powerful opportunity to extend your values and impact far beyond your lifetime. So today I want to show you how strategic charitable giving isn't just about being generous. It's also about being smart with your taxes, with your assets, and with creating the lasting legacy you envision. So whether you're a business owner facing a liquidity event, a professional at the height of your earning years, a retiree looking to maximize impact, or someone thinking about what you want to leave behind, there's a strategy that works for your situation, and that is what we're going to explore this morning. So let me start with the why, not the how, or as I like to call it, the heart versus the head. Because before we talk strategy, let's talk purpose, the heart. I work with donors every day who tell me that giving is one of the most meaningful things they do. And it's not just because they are helping others, though that matters enormously. It's because giving really forces clarity around what matters. So when you give strategically, you're not just writing a check, right? You're saying, this is what I believe matters. This is what I stand for. You're turning abstract values into concrete impact. Your name, or even anonymously, if you prefer, becomes associated with real change in our community and in our neighborhoods. And imagine involving your children or your grandchildren in these decisions. You're not just leaving them money, you're teaching them to think about the world differently. You're creating family traditions around generosity that can last for generations, and that's truly powerful. So I remember in my previous position, I worked with a donor and he was giving fairly consistently, but then he called me one day. His mother had unfortunately passed away, but she left a donor advised fund for him and his two siblings. And so they were each allocated a portion of the donor advised fund. And he called me, he said, Tiffany, I can make a much larger gift this year. He was like, I'm so excited. This is something that I would not have been able to do had my mother not thought about me and my siblings in this way. And so that's really powerful to be able to give your children the opportunity to really give to organizations that they care about. And also, we have grandparents here at the Community Foundation who has a donor advised fund. And I think it's really sweet. What they do is a portion of the DAF is allocated for the grandchildren, and they have to do research on their organization. They have to present the organization to the family. And if they do that, then the grandparents will make a grant to that organization on behalf of the children. So incorporating your family can really, truly be a powerful way of giving. And also, what motivates many donors is that you get to see it, right? So you get to think about, go back to the last slide, Danielle, please. You get to really see that impact. You can visit the nonprofit. You can meet the people whose lives are changing because of your gift. You don't have to wait until you're gone to know your legacy is working. So, but it's not just personal. Every dollar you give multiplies through our community. So when you support an organization tackling the root cause of poverty or workforce development or early childhood education, you're not just solving a symptom, you're strengthening the foundation of our entire region. That our entire region stands on. And so that's really a social return on investment. So one gift becomes a job, which becomes a family that's stabilized, which becomes a child thriving in school, and that's systematic change. Next slide. Now let's talk about the how or the head. So I want to be clear, we're not giving for tax deductions, but if we're going to be generous anyway, why not structure it in the smartest way possible? That's just good stewardship of your resources. So let's first start with thinking through an income tax deduction. So say if you donate cash, you can reduce your current tax liability by up to 60% of your adjusted gross income. Let's say you have a $100,000 charitable gift that you want to put into your donor advised fund, for example. And depending on your tax bracket, that could save you upwards of $37,000 in federal taxes alone. And in a high income year, maybe you had a bonus or sold a business, cashed out an investment. You can bunch multiple years of your giving into 1 year so that way you can maximize that deduction. Now let's talk about this capital gains. Here's where this really gets interesting. Let's say you own stock or highly appreciated stock, and you bought it maybe for $20,000 years ago, and now it's worth $100,000. If you were to sell that stock and then donate the proceeds, you would owe capital gains tax on that $80,000 gain. Depending on your situation, that could be somewhere between 15 and 20% in federal taxes plus state taxes. But if you donate the stock directly to a charitable fund, or to us through a donor advised fund, you avoid the capital gains tax entirely. You get a deduction for the full $100,000 fair market value, and that's thousands in taxes that you avoided, not deferred, avoided. And so giving appreciated securities is one of those dual benefit gifts. You get to avoid the capital gains tax and you receive the fair market value deduction. Now let's think about timing flexibility. You can bunch contributions in high income years. You get the tax deduction in the year you give, but if you use a donor advised fund, you can recommend grants to nonprofits over many years. So say if you have a bonus or a windfall this year, then you can, but you don't want to give all of your giving, of course, in this year. And maybe you want to do more research on the nonprofits that you want to support. You can wait, do that research, and then give over multiple years. So 2027, 2028, and beyond. Now let's connect this to your overall estate plan because that's where the real magic happens. Let's first think about a charitable remainder trust as an example. Imagine you've accumulated significant assets and you're worried about two things. One, you need a reliable income in retirement, and two, you're concerned about estate taxes potentially. A charitable remainder trust lets you solve both of those problems, and here's how it works. You fund the trust with appreciated assets or cash. You receive fixed income stream for life or for a term of years. And when the trust ends, the remainder goes to the charitable causes that you care about or to one of your funds here at the Community Foundation. You can get an immediate tax deduction for the present value of that charitable remainder, and your income is guaranteed and predictable, and you've reduced your taxable estate at the same time. So as an example, a retired professional with maybe 500,000 in appreciated assets or stock or securities funded a charitable remainder trust, and she might receive around $25,000 annually, which is around 5% of the trust value for her lifetime. And with charitable remainder trusts, there is various annuity rates, and you can work with your attorney on what makes sense for you. She received a tax deduction of roughly $200,000, which represents the present value of the eventual charitable gift. So when we're looking at these kind of structures, there are formulas that are used, and the remainder men or the estimated remainder men are what the formula expects to be left over once the trust comes to fruition after your lifetime. That would equate to what your tax deduction could roughly be at that time or at the time that you make the gift. So her estate taxes are reduced, her supplemental retirement income is secure, and then when she passes, a significant gift goes to an endowed designated fund at the Community Foundation that will support her four favorite charities in perpetuity. Now let's look at the flip side of that. So say if you want to reduce your estate taxes but still preserve wealth for your heirs. A charitable lead trust might be perfect. The nonprofit receives income for a term of years, and then your family inherits the remainder. It's a beautiful way to give now while still providing for the next generation. Bequest planning. So here's one of the simplest approaches, right? You can include your charitable gift in your will or trust, as Ann mentioned. It doesn't affect your current lifestyle one bit. You can be as specific as you want. $50,000 to fund a scholarship in education, or as general as you prefer. 10% of my estate to a field of interest fund at the Community Foundation for them to give to Prince George's County or Montgomery County to support crisis response. The Community Foundation can help administer this, ensuring your intent is honored forever. And one of the most simplest and easiest ways of incorporating giving into your estate and financial plans is through just beneficiary designation. It doesn't cost you anything to do. You pull your beneficiary form on life insurance, bank accounts, retirement accounts, etc., and you complete it, and you're able to leave a portion to your charities. Next is around the IRA charitable rollover. So for those of you who are 70 and a half or older, this is huge. If you're taking a required minimum distribution from your IRA that you don't actually need for living expenses, you can transfer them directly to either charities of your choice. Like us, while it can't go into a donor advised fund, the Community Foundation has many other funds that can support a gift from a qualified charitable distribution, which I'll go into in just a little bit. But it's also, when you transfer it to a charitable organization, it's in a tax-free transaction. So the transfer counts towards your RMD, but it's not included in your taxable income. So you avoid income entirely on that amount. And you can leave the balance in part or in whole as a legacy gift to support your charities. I like to call this the now and later gift. I don't know if you all remember that candy. It's not so good for your teeth, but but I don't know if you all remember that candy, the now and later. But this gift always reminds me of that because it's a way to give now during your lifetime and a way to give after your lifetime. So there's one more piece around strategic asset management. Most of us think about charitable giving as only cash, but smart giving uses whatever assets we have available. So let's think about non-cash asset donations. Maybe you own a second property, as Ann mentioned, around like the vacation home, or you have collectibles. I remember I worked with a donor in my previous position who was a physicist. He used to correspond with Stephen Hawking. He had letters that he had signed. And so I remember he came to our office and said, "Hey, is there anything I can do with these? I'm interested in setting up a scholarship for physics students." And so we were able to auction off letters because he was getting ready to retire. He's cleaning off his office and kind of ran upon these letters. So letters that were sitting in a drawer, we were able to actually auction off, and we were able to set up a scholarship for physics students to the tune of a few $100,000 because of letters that were sitting in a drawer. So don't forget about your tangible personal property or your collectibles. There's also business interests. And then rather than trying to liquidate those during your lifetime, you can donate them to your charitable fund. So the foundation handles the due diligence, the logistics. You get a deduction, you avoid the hassle and potential market timing issues, and the asset is converted to charitable capital for you to use to support the charities of your choice. And here's something your financial advisor might suggest around portfolio rebalancing. If your portfolio is heavily weighted in one investment, you might want to rebalance, right? So a charitable gift of the overweighted asset accomplishes two goals at once: rebalancing and tax efficient giving. Or say, for example, you have appreciated a stock that you purchased years ago that's significantly appreciated and you like it because you know it's a good stock. But you can think about donating that appreciated stock and then purchase new stock with a step up in basis. Because think about all the money that you saved by not paying the capital gains tax. And then also you have that fair market value deduction. So using that savings, you can purchase the same stock or similar stock, but you have that stock as a step up with a step up in basis. And then looking at just liquidity events, finally, if you're anticipating some kind of windfall, such as a business sale, inheritance, real estate liquidation, that's the perfect time to establish a charitable strategy as you're thinking about it. Not after, call us before. And as you're thinking about the process before the sale goes through and or before the real estate liquidation. You'll have significant funds that are coming in, and you can decide in advance how much will support your favorite causes, how much will provide for family, and how much will remain for your own needs. You get ahead of taxes and market volatility. Next slide, please. So the financial benefits, but here's the real question. Where do you want your impact to go? This is deeply personal. Maybe you care about education because you struggle to access it. Maybe you're passionate about the arts because they saved you during a hard time. Maybe you care about workforce development because you started with nothing. Whatever your why is, that's where your giving should flow. You can focus on the region, such as the area in which the Community Foundation supports, which is DC, Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Northern Virginia, because this is home. Or you might care about different parts of the country, or even have a global worldview. That's your choice. You might care about education, health, environment, housing, the arts, human services. There are incredible organizations in every space. And you might think about how you want to help. Do you want to fund direct services, helping people immediately? Do you want to support advocacy and systems change, research and innovation, or maybe building organizational capacity? All of these are valid. Once you've identified what matters, the next step is really maximizing that impact. Charity says, I have extra money, I'll give it. Philanthropy says, I want to understand the issue, identify effective solutions, and measure results. Take time to learn, visit organizations, ask about outcomes, be strategic. You can also give collaboratively. Oftentimes, we have donors that come to the Community Foundation and they're looking for ways to connect in the philanthropic space. So you can think about pooling your resources with others who share your passion. Several donors together can often accomplish more than one donor alone because you can fund larger initiatives, you have more influence, you bring diverse perspectives. And at the Community Foundation, we have giving circles of donors with shared passions that do give together. Finally, don't just fund programs. Overhead is this taboo term, but it is often misunderstood because the programs you love cannot exist without the infrastructure that supports them. Sometimes the best gift is supporting an organization's infrastructure, whether that's their fundraising, their board development, their strategic planning, their rest, so they can show up for the people they serve in a restored and a renewed way. A nonprofit with a strong foundation can do so much more with every dollar given. Next slide, please. This is where we come in. The Community Foundation exists to make all of this possible. The strategy, the expertise, the administration, the ongoing stewardship. Danielle talked about a lot of this in the beginning, so I'll just kind of briefly go through. But as she mentioned, we have been doing this for over, I think we're 53 years old now, and have given almost nearly $2 billion since our inception in 1973. We know which nonprofits are effective, and this knowledge is at your service. You have a dedicated philanthropic advisor that can help you think through your organizations, help you with your grant recommendations, understand the compliance. You focus on your vision and let us handle the details. As she mentioned, we have investment management and sophisticated investment strategies to help your fund grow over time so you can make an even greater impact. We handle all of your acknowledgments, tax deduction, nonprofit vetting, the whole nine. So all the things that would be cumbersome or expensive if you tried to do them alone, we can handle for you. And we offer multiple ways to structure your giving because one size does not fit all. So with donor advised funds, you fund your fund with an immediate tax deduction. You can take your time deciding where your grant should go. You can involve your family in those decisions, as I mentioned earlier. You can respond to emergent needs. It gives you the most flexible grant making, and you can leave this, as a gift to family to take over as successor advisors. Our field of interest funds are those funds to where you say, Tiffany, I love marine conservation. I don't know the organizations that are working in it. All I know is I love my animals in the sea, and I want you all to figure that out. Absolutely. We're happy to do that. You can establish a fund, and our philanthropic team will find nonprofits that are most aligned with your goals. But say if you know the organizations you support, you've been supporting them for years, and you want to ensure, that you can continue supporting them after your life, during your lifetime or after your lifetime. We have designated funds to be able to establish or to align with that particular goal. If you want to support education for specific populations, maybe first generation, maybe students from your hometown, or maybe students in a particular field, we have scholarship funds. Or maybe if you say, Community Foundation, you know where the needs are, you know what's happening in the Community Foundation, I'm going to give you this, unrestricted gift. Put the money where it's most needed. We can do that too. And what gives us really unique benefits, or why Community Foundation instead of going it alone, is really for several reasons. When we think about permanence, right? Your charitable intent is honored forever. If the nonprofit you cared about closes or goes out of business, we ensure your values live on by directing grants to similar organizations. Your legacy continues through your fund. Flexibility. You can change your focus. You can involve your family. You can respond. You can respond to changing needs, and we can help you refocus your philanthropy. Anonymity. If you prefer to give quietly, we can facilitate that. If you want to involve your family, we have some fund holders who have 3 and 4 generations making grants from the same fund. It becomes a vehicle for family values, for family conversation, and for family bonding. We can help you think through what that governance structure looks like, as Naomi mentioned, with an upcoming fundamentals course later this year. Cost efficiency. Private foundations often are a lot more expensive, require professional management, whereas a fund with the community foundation, we handle all of that kind of background need, and you don't have to worry about that. You can focus on your philanthropy. And we're kind of talking about really the difference between philanthropy and bureaucracy, right? Let us handle the bureaucracy while you get to focus just on the impact. Next slide. So you might say, Tiffany, all that information, how do we get started? I am glad you asked. So step 1, we're going to define your goals. What change do you want to see in the world or in our community? This is your North Star. Everything else flows from this. Step 2, we're going to assess your resources. What assets can you dedicate to giving? Liquid assets, appreciated stock, real estate, business interests, retirement accounts. Knowing what you have available helps us design the right strategy. Step 3, consult your advisors. Bring your CPA, your financial advisor, your estate planning attorneys like Anne into this conversation. We work with them. Estate planning and charitable planning are interconnected. They need to be coordinated. Step 4, connect with us. Schedule a confidential consultation. There's no pressure, no commitment. We'll listen to your vision and help you see what's possible. And before that conversation, think about these questions. What communities or causes are most important to you? Be specific, not just education perhaps, but what aspect of it if you want to focus on a particular aspect. Why does it matter to you personally? How do you want to be remembered? This is legacy work. What do you want people or your philanthropy to say about you after you're gone? Should family be involved? Do you want your children or grandchildren to make grant decisions with you? What percentage of assets should go to charity versus your heirs? This is the fundamental question. There's no right answer, only your answer. Do you prefer immediate impact or endowed giving? Some donors want results now, others care about sustained impact over time, and both are valid. Now let's think a little bit about the timeline considerations. Year-end planning. We're already in May, but as you head into year-end, consider whether 2026 is a high income year for you. That's the optimal time to maximize charitable deductions. Also, think about gifts that'll take a long time. For example, mutual funds. If that's something you're interested in donating, please do not wait until the end of the year. They take a long time to come to fruition. So think about different assets that you might want to give and give yourself enough time to be able to give them in the year that you want. Life events. Anne mentioned when you talk about updating your estate plan, it's the same here, right? So getting married, retiring, selling a business, inheriting assets. These are all perfect moments to reassess your philanthropic strategy because you're also looking at updating your other plans. Market conditions. Have some of your investments had exceptional growth? That appreciated stock is perfect for charitable giving right now. And legacy planning. Regardless of circumstances, integrate charitable giving into your overall estate plan. Don't treat it as an afterthought. Make it foundational. Next slide. Here's what I want you to take away from this conversation. Charitable giving isn't something you do because you have extra money. It's something you do strategically as a part of your comprehensive financial and estate plan. It's not either or. Either you provide for your family or you support causes. It's both and. A well-structured plan does both beautifully. And it's not something you figure out alone. You have your advisors in your corner, you have us in your corner, you have nonprofit partners who know their work intimately. So my invitation to you is, if you're in a high income year, let's talk about maximizing this year's giving while you still have time to act. If you're selling a business or anticipating any liquidity event, we should coordinate your charitable strategy with your overall financial plan. If you have appreciated assets, We can show you how to give more with fewer tax consequences. If you want to involve your family, we can help design a process that's meaningful and educational. If you're just beginning to think about legacy, there's no time like the present to begin that conversation. I promise I'm delightful, and I always welcome an opportunity to speak with our fund holders and our donors. The goal really is straightforward: to help you extend your values and your impact far beyond your lifetime. Next slide, please. And lastly, if you establish your legacy with the Community Foundation, you will be a part of the Greater Washington Legacy Society, which offers special event invitations and educational opportunities. And we look forward to welcoming you. Thank you so much for taking the time this morning to learn a little bit more about estate planning and how to incorporate charitable giving into it. We are happy to take questions.
Thank you, Tiffany and Anne. I don't see any questions in the chat box, so just in the interest of time, I think we'll go ahead and move on to our conclusion, but we're always happy to take your questions. And our information is on this final slide. I also wanted to invite you to our next session, which is on June 23rd, and that is where we are going to talk about impact investing, and especially our impact investing partnership with Enterprise Community Loan Fund, which is investing in affordable housing with both social and financial returns. So thank you for everyone for joining us today. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out, and we hope to connect with you soon.